For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and welcome to episode 7 of the Brian Cole Story. Brian, how are you?
Good, you?
Doing pretty well. Hopefully these are kind of the... it's nice for you doing these and going back. I know we've touched on that before, but some of the stuff I'm sure can be a little difficult either to hear or maybe for you to kind of go back and relive some of those things. So I just want to once again say thank you for doing these. If anyone is curious, you can go back and watch all of our previous episodes on our YouTube channel. So it's just youtube.com/DrydenWire. We air these on Sundays. Brian, if I remember, which I'm pretty sure I do because I wouldn't have forgotten this one, we left off last week and I said, that's exactly how I'm going to be starting the next episode,
Yeah.
Three-way love triangle. So if you could just, how did we get to this point of the kind of a quick recap of last week?
I had been released from that 10-year prison sentence and got right back into the game again, right back into the drugs, and got hooked up with a bunch of stupid people and ended up in jail a couple other times in prison, and eventually got a job at the Chippewa Humane Association, like my dream job because of the animals, and ended up hiring somebody at one point who was like my sexual dream woman and everything else. She was into the occult and blonde and hot, and got with her, and that's, I think, where we ended off.
All right. So three-way love triangle, that's where it started. It was, if I recall, it was the girl that you were seeing. She was having some issues with her previous relationship. I can't remember. Was it a husband?
Yeah, she was married to this 6'6", 200-some pound Texan mean guy, and yeah, so that's where we had left off.
All right. Well, let's pick it up there. So where do you want to start with that?
Well, when we got together almost immediately, we hired her at the Humane Association, and she had just received a large amount of money from an accident she had been in a few years prior. So she pretty much got $11,000 and just handed it over to me. We had got together. So we kind of went on a shopping spree and drug spree and everything else. I know at one point, this is where my dad comes back into the picture again. Me and my dad had a lousy relationship. He was always brutal to me when I was a kid. Didn't get along much better. As adults, I didn't see him or talk to him much. I was kind of like my brother. The only time I really talked to him was when I wanted something. And he was sometimes kind of easy to manipulate. So he ended up, we found out he had a trailer out in Lake Wissota, and he wasn't living in it, but he owned it. So we conned him into renting it to us. We gave him a bunch of money down on it. And so up to this point now, so I'm, probably in my late 20s, early 30s. And all through my life, I've had this thought in my head that I will never, I hate my dad, and I will never be all right with my dad until I got old enough and grew up enough to take him head on fisticuffs. Because he beat me down when I was a kid. And I mean, my dad was a big guy. He wasn't tall, but he was big, stocky, and strong. And I just thought, hey, when I grow up and it's my time to defend myself, we're gonna duke it out. And so we're living there, and my dad has, he's one of them people that when they mow their lawn, they want these perfect little lines and all that. And he made that. My dad's one of them kind. Okay, well, if we're gonna do this, I think he probably had 2 pages of rules written out for us, and the things that we had to do with the trailer and the lawn and all that. And one of them was those perfect lines. And I remember one day I was out mowing, and we had a big heavy picnic bench out there. I didn't have anybody to help me move it, so I just mowed around it, and And when he came back one day and saw that, he snapped off on me. And this was the first time that I finally got out what I've always had in my mind. And I said, listen, Dad, you beat me down as a kid. I'm old enough now to defend myself. Let's go right now. And I was so excited I finally got this opportunity in my life. And he just looked at me, he turned around, and he walked away, and he denied me of that. And I remember being so upset, man. And I wanted to chase him down and just take him out and beat him down. But You know, I'm not that kind of a guy. I ain't gonna take you out behind your back, except for what's coming up here. So there was that incident with Dad. Um, at one point, living at the or working at the Chip County Mint Association, so I was living in the trailer now. So I ended up getting my very first Doberman pinscher named Shelby. We had a litter of dogs come in of Dobermans, and all but that one got adopted out. And we were not a no kill shelter. You know, the animals that are in there, if they're in there for so many months and nobody adopts them, we start getting filled up again, and we got to
Sure.
put animals down. That was
Sure.
always my hardest time in my life, is Tuesdays when we had to put animals down. And so Shelby was one of them, and she was probably 4 or 5 months old by then. And I ended up adopting her. So she was my first dog, and we had her in Dad's cabin, or I mean the trailer.
Oh, sure, sure, yeah.
And that was one of the rules: we couldn't have dogs. So I was always trying to hide the dog and stuff when Dad would come around. And anyway, so we're into this lady. I'm not going to give her name. This lady and I were into some doing sex rituals and videos and just some really sexual stuff. And she had this is when I kind of found out that there was some weird stuff going on, because she was getting called back to her ex-husband's house once in a while under the auspices of, come over here, if we're getting divorced, we got to divide stuff up. And one point she came back and said some goofy thing about doing a three-way and all that, and I'm like, what are you kidding me? Are you you still love him? What's going
Right.
on? And now understand it, during this time the crack cocaine and doing foilies and the psychedelics were just massive, because we had all that money and we were just buying it, and especially myself, she wasn't doing it as much. I was just drugged up bad. I ended up starting, when I got out of prison that last time there, I worked for a roofing company for a while, and
Yep.
it was about a year on and off, and I saw how easy it was and how much money they were making compared to what I was making as a hired help. So I started my own roofing company called K&K Roofing, and used a bunch
All right,
of
hold
that
on a
money
second. Okay, so we're back. We had to take a quick break there. We're getting some echoing stuff. It happens every once in a while. Hopefully it's been fixed. Sorry about that, Brian. I think that's on our end. Where did we leave off?
All right, so I was I started my own roofing company, used some of that money we had to buy all my own equipment. And so, yeah, one day I'm up on a roof, and in the meantime, like I said, she kept going back to the guy's house. And one day I came back off the roof and she wasn't home, and I tried calling, and that's when kind of she came back one day and wanted to talk about this threesome thing. And so at one point I was just so upset, man. I ended up, she had come back from her ex's house. I took her up to the Porcupine Mountains. I just said, get in the car, we're going. And where we're going, we're just going. And we ended up in the Porcupine Mountains. I was crazed at this time, just crazed about what was going on, the drugs, just everything. And I ended up, we were in the tent at one point, I remember, and I always carried a medicine bag or a pouch around my neck, and I had razor blades in it. And that was my cutting blades. Remember, I said I had an addiction of cutting. And I started cutting, and I started cutting her, and I even cut her face at one point. And then trying to talk all this love stuff and blah blah blah. We ended up I had some tattoo ink and needles with me, and we both ended up marrying and putting this unicursal hexagram on both our ring fingers as the marriage vow. So that happened. We came back. I was so gone out of it. This moment, I think I touched on it last week, that I think it was like we went to McDonald's or something, man. When I parked my car, we went somewhere for a while, and I came back somewhere else, I think, where I thought I was, and this is how my mind was, and I couldn't find my car, and thought someone stole my car. So
You
we're
lose
looking
cars
around.
a lot, by the
I
way.
know, man. So we're looking around. I'm calling people, and finally I called the cops, and they reported my car stolen. And I had a bunch of people looking. 2 days later, I get a call from a friend of mine, my cousin actually, and like, hey, was your car this big Buick and red and blah blah blah? I'm like, yeah. He goes, it's parked over here at McDonald's. And I'm like, what? And then it struck me, because it struck me. I'm like, oh yeah, that's where we originally stopped. So that's how gone I was during this period. Um, Again, up on the roof, found out she was over at his house again. She when I came home, not at home. I'm trying to call. There's no call, or no answer. So I took my car and I went over there and I saw her truck there. Um, I scoped the place out a little bit. I saw her there. Next day, she didn't come home that night. I went by there the next day. She's still there, and I'm just crazed. So I went over a friend's house. They were partying. We're doing foilies, which is cocaine on tin foil, and you burn the bottom of it and put it. Smoke comes up in a cup and all that, and it's just another pure form of cocaine that you're doing, just stupidity. So I'm doing foilies and I'm talking smack to these guys because I'm one of them guys. If I say something, I'm going to do it. So I'm like, I'm going to kill this guy. I'm going to kill this guy. I'm going to kill this guy. So I talked myself into it. I said it in front of people so I could no longer go back on my word. And for 2 days, I think I was there. Went back to the house back and forth, and the truck was still there, and still doing foilies constantly and talking about what I was going to do. And I finally, the end of that second day, I acted on it. I went out and I robbed a few houses trying to find a gun. Found a shotgun at one of the houses. Went out, bought some ammo. I was on my way out to their house. I was going to kill this guy, and something came to my mind that, man, if I shoot this gun and she's in the way or the dogs are in the way, we had a couple chow chows, I might hurt them. So it struck my mind, hey, my stepdad has a 357. So I had one out. I rented a car, and I had already this was going to happen. I rented a nice car, and I was on my way out to my mom's house. I got out there. They live out in the boondocks in the middle of nowhere off the grid, and he always had this holster wrapped around a stool, a log that was part of their what they sat in, and the gun was always there. So I went there, and I'm telling my mom, hey, me and this lady are moving to Montana. I want to, say goodbye to you. And I remember bringing all my journals. I had like 5 journals that I kept throughout my whole satanic life. One was magical and dream journals, and the other was regular diary like type things. And I gave these to her, said, I want you to have these. I don't know when and if we're coming back, and blah, blah, blah. And in the meantime, my stepdad goes out of the house. My mom turns around. I take the gun. I go out and I throw it in the trunk, put the trunk down, came back, and I'm like, all right, well, I got to leave. Well, my mind was so gone and I was so tripping about what I was doing that I blocked the keys in the trunk. So right away I go in, and I'm ripping out the back seats of this car trying to get in the trunk, and my stepdad's like, don't do that, we can get in there, and I'm like just freaking out. I got to hurry up and get out of there before they notice a gun gone, and I ripped all the seats out, ripped the padding out, got back there, got the keys, and left. And this was the point, and I didn't know this until after I was in jail, but as I was going down their mile-long driveway through the woods, my mom's car, my mom and stepdad's car came up behind me, and they started chasing me. And I thought it was my stepdad. I didn't know until after I got arrested it was my mother. And I'm going now. And this rental car hardly had any brakes on it. It was bad. And I was just flying, trying to lose them around corners, get out on the road. They're still continuing to follow me. And finally I got away. But yeah, it was after I got arrested, I found out it was my mom that was chasing me. And I'm like, man, I could have killed my mom in that car accident. So I go. I go about a mile away from where this lady I was with and her husband lived, and parked the truck. I had my dog Shelby with me, or parked the car. I had my dog Shelby with me, and I walked there. It's night now. It's like 11 o'clock at night, and oh yeah, on the way, I stopped at places and I bought a leather jacket with all kinds of pockets. I bought I don't remember, it was 6 to 8 boxes of ammunition for this 357, and stuffed all my pockets because after I did this, if I got caught, I was going to get taken out. I was just going to shoot until someone took me out. I wasn't going down anymore. I was done doing time. I was sick of the situation. This dude messed with me. You don't mess with me. You don't mess with my stuff. She's my property. And I had a police scanner, had all the programs in it for all the local police departments. And so I parked it a mile away, It was probably 11, 12 o'clock at night now, and they had a garage next to their house, and I got up on top of the garage, and I just sat there, listened to the police scanner scoping the house out, and it was then that I found out my mom and stepdad called the cops, and the police were at the house attempting to let him know, hey, this guy is armed, and we don't know if it's for you, but probably. So he's out here, and I guess he didn't care or wasn't worried. So they had been there at the house and warned him that I was armed. So I'm up there, and I'm seeing movement, and I've seen her come out once in a while, letting the dogs out. And it was probably 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, all right, I got to do this. So I got down, with my foot, I broke into the door, and they had warned him, but even though they warned him, he was on the couch in the living room. There was a kitchen, a little hallway, and then the living room. He was on the couch in the chair in the living room, naked, had a gun by him. He did not grab the gun. As soon as I broke in, I'm like, whatever her name was, come here, and comes around the corner, comes down running at me naked, and I aimed the gun at him, and I told him 3 times to stop, and he didn't. He got about 5 feet from me, and I let him have it. I was aiming for his chest, and he went right down. I mean, this big dude went right down to the ground, and I'm yelling at him. I thought he was dead. That's what you get for messing with me. And I remember pulling the bullet that I shot him with out of the gun and putting it in my pouch, said, that's in memory. You don't ever mess with me. And I grabbed her. She was naked, took her out, got her in her truck, took off, went to the car to get my dog, and booked.
So now, she's with you at this point.
Yeah.
The dog's with you.
I told her,
okay.
The dog's with me. I told her to grab some clothes. So she did have clothes with her. She was getting dressed in the truck on the way to the car, got the dog, took off. Now, I was awake 3 days and 3 nights doing foilies. So between that and the excitement of this, I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I was going to the mountains somewhere. But we got up towards Bemidji, Wisconsin, started getting light out, and I was just so tired I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore. So I pulled into this parking lot of a hotel. There was like maybe a couple vehicles. There was a big lot. I pulled it in there, and I put the gun on the center console. I'm going to get us a room. And as soon as I got out of the car and started walking, I heard, you son of a, behind me. And I looked, and she has the gun out, and she starts popping rounds off at me. And I'm zigzagging through this parking lot, booking. And I heard one zing by my ear, and I could easily got killed there. Yeah. She popped off. I think she unloaded the gun on me. And I didn't know what that was about. Well, what is going on? Why are you shooting me? So I go around the corner, and I'm like, great. I know this got heard. So I ended up going across the street down the road a little bit, and there was this Ace Hardware or something there, and they had these jacked up pallets full of stuff on them. And I remember going up under the pallets to hide out, and I started unloading my pockets of all this ammunition in case I got busted, and I'm under there, and all of a sudden cops are everywhere, man. And I was I know I even fell asleep a couple times while this was going on because I was so tired. At one point, maybe an hour or two passed, and I didn't see many cops anymore for a little while. So I ducked up under there, left the jacket up under there, and went down the road a little bit, and there was this liquor store. And there was this native guy coming out of the liquor store. And I said, hey, man, where you guys going? Well, we're going over here. I said, I'll give you a $100 bill. I had a bunch of money on it. I said, I'll give you a $100 bill if you guys give me a ride. So he was like, okay. So just as I get in the car, police start rolling in and rolled up on us, and they got me. So here I am. They take me to the county jail. The county jail is pretty much all Native Americans, and I'm the only white boy in there, even though I'm partially Chippewa Indian, but I'm a white boy.
Right.
So that didn't go well for me at first. So here I am, been awake all this time. This just happened, and I got natives that are messing with me and pounding on things because I'm trying to sleep. I finally come up out of there, and I snap off and said, you think that's funny, man? Do you understand? I just shot somebody. I'll take you out right now. You keep that up. And so then they had respect for me because I stood up for myself. I went to sleep. So the only thing on my mind after I finally slept for a while and got up was my dog. And, I'm calling my friend Lori at the Chip County Humane Association, telling her, that I think the cops got the dog. We got to take care of the dog. That was the only thing on my mind. And so I end up being there for a few days. I get extradited back. And the guy did live. He was in a coma for, I don't know, a week or two. I didn't hit him in the chest. The gun must have moved off, and I hit his arm and almost shot his arm right off. He thought I was still in the house, so the gun put him to the floor, but he thought I was still in the house, so he played dead. And when I left, he started crawling to the next door neighbor's house to get help. In the meantime, he's bleeding out. So because of loss of blood and everything, he almost died. So they had to reattach his arm pretty much. And but at that time, they were still telling me he was in a coma, and they might charge me with first degree murder and all that. Didn't really care. But like I said, my mind was gone even after I cleaned up in the jail. All I cared about was getting Shelby taking care of my dog, and he ended up living. I ended up getting a first degree aggravated assault charge and theft charge and felon possession of firearm, all that kind of good stuff. I wrote bad checks to get the ammunition and all that kind of stuff, and I ended up with 18 years in prison, 12 years probation, 12 years stayed sentence, and a whole, the restitution ended up being, I don't know, $80,000. So I had to pay for all his medical bills.
Right.
So there was all that. And so, yeah, that was my second big bit. And we'll kind of end there. And, maybe if you want to ask some questions. And
a few. Going back, when you went to your mom's, before you went, you went there to get the gun.
Yeah.
And you said that you and your significant other were going away. Mm-hmm. Do you think that she believed you?
Yeah.
Or did she think something was up?
No, I was a good manipulator. Yeah. I mean, there was no reason for her not to believe me. I had brought her out there to meet them a couple times. And
okay. And then when you left, you thought that they were following you, and you thought it was your stepdad, but it was your stepdad and your mom.
No, my stepdad wasn't in the car.
Oh, it was just your mom. Okay.
Yeah.
Why was she? I'm assuming because she noticed the gun was gone, but why was she chasing you?
Maybe she thought she could talk me out of, whatever it was that I was doing.
So she notices the gun gone, or one of the two notices the gun gone. She chases after you, because she loves you.
Yeah.
And
she told me that while she was doing that, she was screaming, "Brian, no, no!" Not out the window at her, but she was just screaming that her son would do something like that to her.
So she immediately, when the gun was gone, knew you're going to do something bad.
Well, I don't know if she knew that. All she knew is I stole the gun.
All right. And now when you're, I don't know, tweaked out and, you're on drugs for like 2 days at that point. So I'm not really around a lot of people that do drugs. So I just assume I'd be able to know if you're crazy high on a whole bunch of drugs. Was that something that you could kind of mask? Like, yeah, they didn't know that I was.
Oh, yeah, big time. Even with meth, meth, it's kind of hard to hide that when you're methed out. And that other woman, that Nancy I was staying with, and Nancy and I were still on and off during this time too. She stayed with me. Even I was living with Nancy, and this will come after I get done with this bit and get back with Nancy again. But I was living with her and doing meth, and she had no idea. You don't sleep at night, so I'd go to bed with her and wait till she falls asleep, and I'd get up and I'd leave and come back before she woke up. And I knew you talk and talk on meth, and tweak out and do this and that. So I was very careful about not talking as much as you do when you're on meth. When I was around her and around my mom, same thing. I knew how to act around my mom. You just try to shut up and be calm.
So she calls the police and has them go to that location where you were heading to.
Well, like I said, she didn't know. She just called the cops and knew I had a gun. Now, when I went to the Porcupine Mountains with her that time, her ex had called the cops and said I kidnapped her. And I was looking at kidnapping charges until, she went and said, no, he didn't kidnap me and all that. So the cops knew that there was all this three-way love triangle stuff going on. So when Mom called about that, they probably knew something was up, and that's why they went to his house and warned him.
Okay, that makes sense. I forgot to ask, and maybe you already said it, but how many times did you shoot that dude?
Once.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was first-degree aggravated assault. Now, that is like the nicest way. I mean,
yeah.
It was aggravated assault. It feels like that isn't like intentional homicide. Isn't that a thing?
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't get an attempted
Like
murder or
aggravated
something out of
assault. You
that, but
shoot
I had a,
somebody.
and I think why it was the reason why I think I didn't get the attempted murder charge
Yeah.
or something else. It could have been even more time. I got a lot of that. Some of that time was from the other charges I got. I think the cops knew that there was no innocence on their part. They
Okay.
had dealt, I guess they had dealt with them before in other situations kind of like this, so they're thinking that this is like a what do you call it? It's a path they've taken before,
Mm.
but only this guy didn't put up with it this time. So there was stuff like that going on before with them, and I think the judge took that into consideration, and all the manipulation on the woman's part and everything else is why I got the charges I got.
And where are you at this point? So you're gonna go to 18 years, or you get sentenced to
Yep.
18 years. For how long was it from when you get arrested? About a week later, I think you said you got transported back, etc. Then you get charged. Then you get sentenced. How long was the from the time this happened until the time you get sentenced? Because sometimes these take a while, right? 6 months,
Yeah,
year, whatever.
it takes longer now. I mean, each year that goes by, it's longer and longer. You could sit in
Okay.
court for years, but it was a few months. It was a few months. I
Wow,
don't remember
that's
exactly.
was there like a jury trial, or you just?
No, I've
That's
never
right.
went to jury trial. I've always been copped of whatever I did, man. I've never tried to get out of anything I didn't do or I did.
Okay, and where then are you with your, Satanism? Is
Yeah,
this?
well,
I'm sure. Does this help that? Does it hurt that? How does that play into all
no.
this?
Well, I think it wasn't just the drugs. It. I always say that I always blame everything on the drugs. But most of that has to do with my religion that I had because it was like do without will to be the whole law. Um, I'm allowed it. And part of our holy books is take wine and strange drugs and be happy thereby. And it's just all about you and your life and you being happy and you doing whatever you have to do. And in that mode, I was in protect mode. He messed with my woman, and you don't do that to me. So I can do, take whatever means necessary to deal with that issue. So my religion gave me permission to do everything that I did.
That's interesting. Yeah, because there's no. I mean, where's your moral compass when you have a
There is no,
religion that says you don't have one, or
right?
everything is okay?
Everything is okay as long as it satisfies me.
Well, that'd be a great way to live. I mean, a horrible way to live, but
Right.
as
Yeah.
long as I'm happy,
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
So what was you're going into prison? I'm sure that's what we'll pick up next time. Is
Yeah.
now back in prison. Out of curiosity, where did they send you first?
Right back to Dodge, and then after a few months in Dodge, I went to Waupun this time.
Well, and you've already been there, so
Yep. Yep.
hey guys, me again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're all like, surprised it took you this long.
Right.
We thought we'd see you sooner. So what is again? We always kind of look at themes here, and I think this is just the same theme that we always seem to talk about.
Yeah. Basically, I think this time, again, just dealing with the people you hang out with, but this time it's we
So it's kind
talked
of on
about
you.
this. Yeah, a little bit last week. These guys they come out of prison and they get with these women that are just into stupid things, and and that enables you to probably go back into those stupid things too. So I got with this woman who was just into some crazy stuff and weird stuff, and look what happened as a result of that. I mean, a normal person would have seen immediately what was going on, been like, I am out of here, man. I got nothing to do with this, man. Let alone the three-way love triangle thing and all the weirdness that was going on there. But that was my life, bizarre, weird, chaotic. Discord, and
Yeah.
that was just my life, and I lived on that stuff. People look at just addictions like drugs and alcohol and sex and porn and all that kind of stuff. Criminal activities, man, and that lifestyle of crime, that's an addiction. That high that you get when you're pumped up and crazed and you're going out and you're stealing stuff, that's a high in itself, man. That is an addiction. It's addicting. And just like with the
Hmm.
drugs, even before you use the drug, all that little ritual, the worship that you do before you use that drug, setting up the bong and putting on,
Oh,
scraping it out or putting on a new bowl on it and putting the fresh water in the bong and sitting down and turning on the Led Zeppelin, and that's all pre-trial stuff, man. That's the same in the lifestyle of crime, whether you're going to shoot somebody or you're going out and burglarizing a home or something. That ritual stuff is a high.
Well, that makes sense because that was something that I found interesting. What you were saying earlier, but you just didn't go grab a gun. Even high on drugs and not even sleeping. It sounded like you put a lot of thought into it.
I put a lot of thought and I had to do a lot of talk because, like I say, I was never a confrontational guy, face to face too much. Other than when I was younger and we used to get paid to take people on and all that kind of stuff. But I was one of them where I'm a revenge person. I'm gonna get you one way, and I'm gonna put the sugar in your gas tank. I'm gonna blow explosives off at your house or whatever it is. But I'm not gonna. So that I had to talk myself into something like that because I mean, yeah, it's been a fantasy a lot of my life about shooting cops and everything else. I dreamt about that a lot, full of it in my journals. But to actually do it, never had been on my mind before. So yeah, it took a lot to be able to actually, and I knew what it would have to be, what it would have to take is to talk to people and say, this is what I'm going to do, because then I couldn't go back on my word.
Animals, you've brought this up on most of the shows. That's the one thing, man. You'd never hurt an animal.
Yeah.
Why? What is it about an animal? Is it a specific, like a dog? Or if it was a cat, like, well, I mean, I've never hurt a dog.
No,
but a cat, I don't care. Where did that come from, you think?
Well, I grew up with animals, and I think, not just with dogs and cats and stuff, but we lived on a farm, and when the farmers go out and plow in the spring, that's where the cottontails would, have their babies. And so it was during that time when the babies would probably be a couple weeks old or whatever. So I'd take my dad's coonhounds out, and after they plowed the field, they'd sniff out all these nests that got dug up, and whatever bunnies survived, I would take back to the house and I would bottle feed them until they got old enough to go on their own and let them go. My dad trapped. There was a couple times we found live animals. I ended up taking them and nursing them back to health and letting them go. Just the animals are just something that love.
Unconditional love.
Unconditional love. Doesn't care what you do, say, whatever. Even if you're mad at them, they love you. I have always sought love. I know my mom loved me, and I love my mom, but I could never show that because of my dad. So the animals really took on what I was seeking in life. They were the persona of what I was seeking in that unconditional love. So
yeah, you're drugged out. You got a gun. You're going to kill someone, and you're taking care of the dog.
Yeah. And even though I don't know whatever happened to Shelby, I was trying to continually call the Laura at the Humane Association to take care of that for me. To I know they had her at some Humane Association up there in Bemidji or the Bemidji area or wherever they took her, and I was saying, do whatever you got to do. I'll send you the money and blah blah blah, but. We lost touch here for a while, and I don't know whatever happened to Shelby.
All right, and lastly, the female that is involved in this love triangle, is that the end of her in your life, and end of this part of that? Like, never saw her again?
No.
Oh.
Well, I never saw her again. No.
Oh, okay.
But that was the end of it, as far as once I went in and we got connected back writing.
All right, and once again, God not in the equation anywhere in here, right?
Ooh, no.
Of course not.
My gods.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All right. We leave it there?
Yeah, we'll leave it there, and we'll start with the bit.
And a preview for next week. Obviously, we'll be getting into your next 18 years, or however long you. And how long did you end up staying in there?
10 years.
10 years. So another 10-year stretch.
Yep, another 10-year stretch. Yeah.
All right, Brian. Thanks so much.
All right, love you, man.
I love you too. We'll see you next week.
All right, bye.